Hey, Robert.
What's up, my brother? How are you?
Oh, living the dream, man. What's up with you?
Nothing much. I'm actually in my van because I'm on site working.
Oh, cool.
So,
You said you're in your van?
yeah, I got here at 7:30 a.m.
Oh, wow.
and I made sure that I had time to take a little break.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. How's it going?
It's interesting. Things are coming back to normal, but I tell you, dude, I so miss Martha Stewart's things where I met you. Those are like the highlight of my year every year.
That was quite the life.
Oh,
Yeah. So let me say, for those of you who don't know, Mystic Not and I met 2-3 years ago.
I think 3 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, we were both Martha Stewart honorees for American Made.
Yep.
And we were both honored, and I think what you do is great, and I'm happy that you decided to come on.
No, it's
Now,
fun. It's good. It's good to see. It's good to see you still out there doing it, man.
yep, absolutely. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, actually, I'm in a public retail space. There's no customers, so this is actually legal. So if somebody comes in, you'll see me put my mask back up. So I'm Matt Bedoin. I'm the third generation knot tyer in my family. My grandfather started a little knot tying business back in the 50s called Bedoin's Rope Locker, which isn't really a name built for online. So I changed the name in 2009 to bring it online as Mystic Knotwork. We do all the most famous thing we do is those Sailboat bracelets that you see all over the place.
Right.
But at the time I opened it was the only knot shop in the country.
Okay, no, whoa. Slow it up.
Sorry, man.
One second. Okay, tell us your name and where you're from.
Sure, Matt Bedoin, and I'm in Mystic, Connecticut.
All right, and you make knots.
I make knots.
Okay, now we're going to get into a series of questions, and after the questions, we'll get into your journey.
Oh, cool. That sounds good. Much easier.
Yes. So, and I think I have the questions memorized because I don't have them here with me. They're usually at my desk. So, what is your most used word or phrase?
Actually, living the dream, I think, is pretty much the one I use. Sometimes
All
it's
right.
sarcastic, sometimes it's not.
Okay. All right. What sound do you enjoy most?
What sound? Guess really bad. I live on a sailboat, but a deep booming thunderclap.
All right. What sounds annoy you the most?
Like my aunt will hate me for this, but the high soprano voice just rails me like fingers on a chalkboard.
All right. What is the thing your spouse would want to change most about you?
You know, I'm so perfect. I don't think there's anything she'd change.
All right. What would you change about her?
I'm kidding. Just the fact that I have trouble relaxing and just going with things. She doesn't like the fact that not helping. A little bit too intense.
That's it.
Okay. If you want to travel across the country on a motorcycle, who would it be with?
Travel. I've never been on a motorcycle.
It's hypothetical, man. Come on, play along.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I think Ryan Reynolds would be a hoot. My brother-in-law actually used to ride with him on Indian bikes.
Okay, cool. If you were to go to a card game and there's a likelihood that a fight may break out, who would you bring with you?
One of my good friends runs a medieval sword fighting club up in New Hampshire. His name's Jay Brooks. So he's not going to be much to you, but I've seen him in thousands and thousands of fights, and I definitely want him covering the six.
Can you play cards?
Yes, he can.
Okay. All right. Handcuffs or scarves?
Scarves.
What irks you the most?
I'm sorry?
What irks
What
you?
irks you the most?
People who hide things that I really need to know about. Like when a
What
team
makes
member
you
messes up, I'd rather know about the mess up than hide it.
exactly? Let's fix it. What makes you tick?
What makes me tick? Um, just trying to win at whatever the project is at the time. Just right now it's trying to get our town's economy going again. It's kind of, I just get passionate about stuff. It goes on for a few months, and I find the next hot thing to try to figure out.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to try?
I'd like to be an airline pilot. I think it'd be fun.
Okay. If you and your wife were in a bar, if you and your partner were in a bar and a fight broke out, would she be more willing to call the police or grab a gun?
She'd call the police.
Okay. Lastly, what would you want on your tombstone?
No clue, dude. What was the quote? There was somebody famous who said, the graveyards for the dead. You're still living. Get on with your life, kind of thing.
Right. All right. I like that. I like that. Okay. So now what we want to get into is from high school on, the things in your life that have guided you toward where you are now, and how you learn to turn knots, how many knots do you know, what's your favorite knot, etc. So let's start with the high school and bring it back.
I got to start a little earlier than that for it to make sense. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I started tying for my grandfather when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
I tied over 100,000 knots before I turned 15, and
Woo.
used that money to help pay for my college. I earned second place in the state science fair in physics and mathematics. And I went to college for electrical engineering.
Okay, hold it. What did you come in second place for? What were you doing?
I designed some rockets to test out aerodynamics of rocket fins, and then did the math.
Wow.
Figure out how, and then tested my results by firing off rockets.
Wow.
So
That's impressive.
1988 technology here. But I went to college for engineering.
Okay, hold on. Wait a second, man. You went from 15 to college. What happened in high school?
High school, I was the computer geek. I was the guy who, I did track. I pole vaulted, but pretty much you'd find me in a computer lab, figuring all that stuff out. It was really intense on that. I had a little sunfish sailboat. I'd sail in the river. I went crabbing with my dad. We had we lived right on a river, salt river.
Were you working with the family business tying knots at this time or no?
Oh yeah. From 7 years old until 26 years old, I was tying knots for my grandfather at some point. And then when I was 26? Yeah, 26.
About 26.
My grandpa handed me the keys and said, "I'm sick of this. It's yours now."
Okay. All right. Now, from high school, you went into college, and where'd you go to school?
UConn.
UConn. All right.
Yep.
And what'd you study there?
Electrical engineering and computer science.
Okay. And how far is that from the family business?
About an hour.
Okay. So were you commuting, or did you live on campus or near school?
The nice thing about the kind of work I do, different from yours, is I can do it in my lap in the dorm room. So I would tie stuff. I would tie stuff kind of like a part-time job, and then I would go back home every 3 weeks or so and trade out stuff with my grandfather.
Got it.
It wasn't a big thing. It's nothing like it is now. It was my grandfather's first floor of his house, a couple, wholesale accounts around, and it was really just a family little thing.
Okay, so how did your grandfather start this? What was he doing? What was he selling?
Actually, if you look over my shoulder here, that's one of the masterpieces he made. There's seven of those out there. 2 of them he sold, 5 stayed in the family. And then the one to the further left, that's a coffee table. So he was doing fancy like that, you know, and then he would sell a few
Okay,
of
wait. Can we get a closer shot of that?
Yeah,
It's the
Joe.
frame we're looking at, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all knots.
So that's
Wow.
a rose right there. Well,
Where's your finger?
Okay, she's gonna find my finger.
I can't find it. There it is.
There it is. So that's a rose knot. That's 3 knots combined together, and that right there represents about 100 feet of cord.
Wow.
The whole thing included is 85 miles. Took him about 3 years to make.
That's 85 miles of
string, of cord.
Woo.
Slow down, Joe.
Yeah, I know. I'm going too fast.
But so he was tying those, and my grandmother.
How many knots are in there?
Individual knots, I don't know. Kinds of knots, about 50.
50 different kinds of knots.
Yeah.
Wow.
And thousands of them in total.
Right.
So he was tying fancy like that, while my grandmother had all of us grandkids tying bracelets and the small stuff. That's where they actually made their money to pay the bills. So, you know, my grandfather started out, he was a merchant mariner before World War II broke out. And when the war happened, he got kicked out of the Merchant Marine for his vision when the Navy called him all up. So he re-enlisted as a private in the Army. He came out of it with a Purple Heart with 3 clusters and 2 Bronze Stars.
Wow.
And kind of a little bit off. You know, this day and age would be a minor case of PTSD. So that's when he started doing all his fancy, was to straighten his mind out and just kind of get a place to escape to.
Okay. So you're in college going back and forth, studying engineering, tying knots. After college, what did you do?
After college, actually, I didn't finish college. I had about 4 years of hell.
It's Josh.
Hard to really explain without getting too deep. But my other grandfather committed suicide when I was 19 years old, and that put me into a tailspin for a while. When I came out of it, my wife, I wanted to open a fabric store, so we did that. So while she was selling yards of fabric, I was working as a clerk, kind of, and then tying my knots and selling them. And every Wednesday, I would drive to all the beach shops around in the summer and sell out of the trunk of my car.
Nice. And how long did you do that?
I did that for about 4 years.
What's the furthest you traveled to sell your knots?
Back then?
Yes.
About 40 miles, 30 miles, not very far.
40 miles is a decent ride. And
I'm selling it to Singapore now.
okay, we're going to get to that. All right. So you driving 40 miles to sell a knot. How much were you making on that 40-mile drive?
Maybe $500.
Wow. That's worth a 40-mile drive. So your range was like 40 miles from where you were, and you only sold on seaports?
Yep. My range was basically Newport, Rhode Island to Essex, Connecticut, if you know any of those towns.
Okay. How far is Newport, Rhode Island from you?
That's about the 40 miles.
Okay. Got it. All right. And you did that for 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years. Just during the tourist season, just late spring through mid-August, usually when they stop wanting anything.
Okay. And then after the 4 years, what did you do?
That's when the fabric store didn't make it, so we closed that, and I went into corporate. I worked as a copier, printer, repair tech, forms designer, basically jack of all trades inside of a consulting company, and I served 72 corporate accounts around a 3-state area.
Wow. Okay. And how long did you do that? How long did you do that?
I did that from 2001 to 2009.
And after 2009, what'd you do?
2009, I dropped into this full time. I had a moment where my boss challenged my expense report one too many times, so I gave 6 weeks notice. And at the time, this business was doing $700 a year in sales when I quit my job.
How many?
$700 a year.
So that is that when your grandfather had it?
Nope, that was my grandfather passed away in 2003, and we're talking 2009.
Okay. So who was running it in 2009?
It's hard to we're missing a gap here. Really, when my grandfather handed off in '96, it was 3 wholesale accounts he'd had for decades, and whatever I did at craft shows. It was really not a business to speak of. So it was just me doing craft shows here and there, supporting Mystic Army Navy, the Mystic Emporium, and the Essex Train Museum.
Okay. And then you get to 2009 when you kick it in.
It suddenly got serious, yeah.
Okay, so what was that like? How did it become more serious? What did you do?
Well, like I mentioned, the expense report, that was the same week I got the contract with Defender Marine Industries, and their order was bigger than my previous year, all told. And they sold through.
Okay,
ordered. And I
how did you get that contract?
My sister works there, so it was kind of an easy in.
Okay, and what did they order from you?
They ordered keychains, floating keychains, some macrame pieces that we don't make anymore, coasters, just your basic smalls. Mostly home deck goods that would go on a boat.
Okay, and how much of it did they order?
About 250 pieces or so.
Okay, all right.
Wasn't that big.
All right. Okay, so you got them. That starts you out, keeps you on your feet, and then what happens?
Well, that got me motivated. So then I started going. Actually, I had been going to before this, like the Newport Boat Show and those places. And I would have a knapsack on my back, and I would be tying bracelets and giving them away to people with business cards, just freebie handouts, just to get my name and knowledge out there. And then, so my website was banging along. My wholesale started going. When I gave my notice to quit my job, it was just a matter of just getting on the road, building on that. Everywhere we went, I drove my wife nuts till we go on day trips to different towns and try to pick up 5 accounts before I left the town. So,
cool.
My wife suddenly realized she wasn't just going out for dinner every time we went out somewhere.
The man had a plan.
Man had to eat. When you drop a corporate job for $1 an hour job, you got to fix that.
Right. Okay, so we're in 2009, 2010.
Yep.
All right. So when did it start to really pick up?
Well, I replaced my paycheck by the end of 2010. I was up to speed just from that grind. It really took off, again, Martha Stewart. It really took off in 2012. And what happened was Martha Stewart started that American Made thing that you and I met. And I got this random call from somebody, I think it was Hannah, who said, okay, first things first, you're not going to win. But we're doing this American Made contest, and we need entries. So if you can send me 4 pictures, we will enter you in the contest as an example. And based on that, we'll get the entries and win. But so all I'm gonna promise you is your name and your story will get out to the world, and you'll be invited to the awards later in the year. But again, you won't win. So they put my hands on this little postcard and sent them to 6 million people in the country.
Wow.
And it was.
Who did that?
It was crazy.
Who did that?
I'm giving Hannah Millman credit. I don't know if it was what was Anderson's first name? Courtney Anderson, or I don't know exactly who on the team did it. I met probably a dozen people at the time, but Hannah was really my shepherd. She was calling me every week, keeping me on the straight and narrow, making sure I was doing what needed to be done to make a business out of this.
Now, who is Hannah?
Hannah Millman was, I believe she was director of Handmade for Martha Stewart's entire business. So she was the one who did all the craft stuff for Living Magazine and set up all that. She was basically within that realm. She was Martha's right hand woman. Hard to explain who she is, but I think the absolute world of her. I still talk to her a few times a year.
All right, cool. All right, so once you got your 6 million postcards out all over the world, Then what happened?
Well, then we went to that Martha Stewart event, and less than 6 months later, they put us in Martha Stewart Living magazine. That year, we did. I'm trying to do that 6 week period. I was working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, making the stuff. My wife was shipping. This is still out of our house, and we did more business in those 6 weeks than we did in the previous 3 years.
Hell to Martha.
No kidding.
So, okay, so let's talk about how far you've reached. Where are your knots around the world and country?
We have hit every single continent on the planet. We are.
Wow.
We make lanyards for the Antarctic expedition group. So what they do is they take one of our lanyards, they give them to everybody who goes to Antarctica.
Oh.
I got the mask. And
do you have any that are there that we can see?
I don't have any. I don't think right now, but they're similar to the necklace.
Well,
just
yeah,
white.
they're in cotton, but they're similar to this one.
Sorry, we're gonna walk and make you dizzy.
No, that's fine. We could take a little shop too in a minute.
So this is basically what it was.
Nice.
And what they're doing is they're hanging a badge off of here for their teaching things, and the badge itself was a seed based thing, so they could plant it afterwards. So it was a zero waste, which is the whole thing about the Antarctic expedition is they're trying to do it as a zero footprint thing.
Right. Okay, so what is your most popular product?
It's still that classic white sailor bracelet. It's
Okay.
white version of this.
All
Between
right.
that white bracelet and the white coaster, it's almost half our business.
And how many of those do you sell a year?
You can answer that one, Joe. What was the
I think it was 10,000 white ones last year.
Yeah, 10,000
Wow.
white.
And you make those all yourself?
No. I've got a team.
How big is your team?
It works out to being 7 full-time employees, but it's actually 22 souls. I've got a lot of college kids and people who work here and there as fill-in between their other jobs.
So when people come, you teach them how to tie the knot?
Yes. I've only had 3 people come in knowing any of it.
Okay. All right. How many different knots do you know?
I can pull out of memory probably 75 to 100.
Wow.
Which is nothing like my grandfather. My grandfather, it's funny as years go on, his number goes down, but it was 3,000 back in 57 in his interview, and it was down to 900 in his 1976 interview. So
he knew 3,000 knots?
Yeah, he knew 3,000 knots at one point.
I don't know 3,000 words.
There's a museum in New London called the Custom House Museum, and I donated 27 knot boards to them of just every single different knot you could imagine.
Wow. So who is your single biggest client?
Our single biggest client right now what's that?
Seabags.
Yeah. Is a company called Seabags. They take old sails and they recycle them into handbags and wallets and various other wine totes and things like that.
Nice. Okay, you also said
right down the street from us too, which is kind of fun.
You also said you live on a sailboat.
Yes, sir.
How big is the boat you live on?
The boat itself is 37 feet overall length. The living envelope is about 8 foot by 20 foot.
That sounds like a yacht.
Well, if you get in it, it's like a small RV.
Do you often sail?
Yeah, we're working on it. We were taking it out. We've taken it out once this year, and we went to take it out a second time, but got a little squirrely. The wind was a little bit too strong getting off the dock. So
now, when you took it out, where'd you go?
The easiest part. Docking and undocking, that's the hardest part.
No, thank you.
Right. It's the same thing with milling logs. The hardest part is putting it on there right and taking it off.
I believe it.
So when you took the sailboat out, where'd you go?
Just out in the Fisher's Island Sound. It's spot of water east of Long Island between New York, Connecticut, and Rhode Island.
How long would it take to get there?
From here, about an hour, but it's really slow moving because you can only go 5 knots on the water to get out there. It's just all the marinas and everything you're working your way through.
Okay. How long have you been living on a sailboat?
7 years.
7 years.
Yep.
All right. And it's just you. Okay. So what was your decision to live on a sailboat?
That's Jill's question. Because she decided I was moving on the boat.
Is Jill holding the camera?
Yes, she is.
Jill, come on, girl. How you? He's talking about Jill, and you're there.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay. So Jill, why on a sailboat? And why weren't you answering any of those questions?
No, we want to do some traveling by, see the country by boat. So we just, moved on to it just to get used to it. And it's easy because we're right close to the shop. So we like it. It's, living small.
Okay.
It's kind of cool.
Right.
It's like our own little tiny house, our floating
Yeah.
tiny house.
And it reduces overhead too. There's nothing better than that.
Oh yeah, it's basically
So
free living with the house rented.
Yeah. So it's the two of you and a dog on a boat.
Yes.
Right.
What's the most challenging thing about living on a boat?
Take it, Jill.
I would say probably in the wintertime, there's no water. That's the hard part. We have to lug in water with big, jugs of water for doing dishes and washing up and stuff. That's hard.
Okay.
So.
All right. What is the best thing about living on a boat?
Probably waking up on days like today when it's, not too hot, but just
Pretty
water's
nice.
calm and beautiful, and the birds are flying around, and it's just beautiful.
Very nice. Okay. Now, can we get a little tour of the shop?
Sure. Why don't we start with the entrance and we'll go from there.
Sure.
So, if Jill can, we're going to step outside for a quick second.
Okay.
This is our. I'm going to get that for long to the truck out front.
Oh yeah.
This is our view. This is our view from the shop.
That's the Mystic
That's
River.
pretty nice.
You can see the drawbridge in the winter. There's a tree blocking the view right now, but that's the river. We're right on it.
And then if you look over the top of the shop, you can see she pans it.
Oh.
You're going to be wreaths on the door on the outside, and we're
Oh,
not.
yep. And then we have big giant wreaths.
There's a door, opener, closer, weight.
Yeah, we have this cool thing that you can't really see it, but it's like a big monkey fist weight that closes.
Nice.
It closes the door because the door doesn't close.
Okay, cool.
That's Betsy.
So this is the most popular thing we sell. These are our bracelets that we have made ahead. So that's
How
that weight bracelet we keep talking about.
How much are they?
$6.
Okay.
This is a little tiny kids one, but normally they're more, adult size, more in this size range.
And those are $6 as well?
Yep. And then here's some macrame belts. My friend Maurice Tripler makes these for us. He's a 74-year-old retired Coast Guard.
Wow.
Those aren't online. So when you're looking at the shop, you're seeing all the weird stuff we can make as well as the stuff we sell online.
Listen, take your time and let's scan it all.
Okay. So up top, there's a bunch of cotton wreaths.
Okay.
People use both for on their doors, obviously, but also as part of formal tables, like a wedding. Just picture a vase coming up out of the middle of it and just making a display.
How much are they?
Those are how much?
45. Oh, 50.
They're $50 on the website.
Okay, so when
you can grab and go online.
So you keep saying cotton. What do you like to knot with usually?
I like working in cottons. I hate working in synthetics.
Got it.
It's kind of a weird thing, but I want to, I don't want to have something that people throw away and doesn't biodegrade at some point.
Got it.
Because when it's lived its life, I don't want it to just be there forever.
Okay.
But we do sell some stuff in synthetic because there are reasons. You might
Yep.
want to you're going to hang for 10 years, whereas a cotton wreath, you can get 3 or 4 years out of it if it's in the full weather.
Got it.
Which we don't recommend. We recommend people put it between the doors or on a porch or inside their house. So these are a braided piece. We've had it for years. We had questions about making bracelets for your ankle, and if you know anything about how your ankle and your heel work, this doesn't work for you. So Jill came up with this design where it's our basic braid and 3 whips, so you can adjust it in, so you can put it on your ankle and tighten up to how it fits.
Go, Jill. I like that.
So, and these are a wider version because people want to have something more substantial than just a thin bracelet.
Okay.
Yep.
These started out back in hospitals and things like that, where people had to cover wrist tattoos.
Okay, Jill.
Yeah.
Do you all make stuff for bondage? I guess that's a no.
I'm learning something new too. So we showed you these before. Again, Jill Designs. So that's
Very nice.
We showed that earlier. We saw it as a necklace usually.
Yeah.
And this is kind of more of the same. It's the same as the anklet, just bigger for a necklace or a hairband to keep, your flowing locks back like I need. These are not on the website either. These are some paracord bracelets. We started making these as a teaching tool for kids. The Mystic Aquarium down the street, we've taught about 3,000 kids how to tie these now.
Wow.
Yeah, they're just like simple.
And people started coming and asking for them.
Simple square knots. It's like the easiest knot to teach. So.
Okay.
So swing over here to more. So we started dip dyeing the bracelets. People want a little more fancy colors. These are also only in the shop. So it's the same as a white bracelet, just obviously we're tie dyeing them for the hippie types. My wife who likes them. And then the shackle bracelet. This is a real 308 captive pin shackle, like you'd find in a small sailboat. So it makes a nice little bracelet. Which this isn't one of those, but it ends up looking like that on your wrist. This is actually one of those anchors.
Got it. The one you just showed me, how much is that? That's cool.
The shackle bracelet on the website is
18.
I think it's 18 on the website. You're seeing it in shop prices, which highly encourage people to come in the shop, but we try to make it a discount outlet kind of feel to it. And these are our trivets. We have all of our cord cut rope. I have all of our rope custom made for us. So I don't know if you can hear this. It's a really solid rope. You don't see a piece of string do that usually.
And that's cotton? That's
cotton. It's just been twisted on in a serious way.
So you can put your hot pot on it and it won't melt.
So where do you get the cotton from?
The cotton's all grown here in the US. It's milled, again, it's all US. It's one of the few things I don't give away as a secret. I'll teach you how to tie the knot. I won't teach you where I get the material.
It's all good, baby. That's yours.
When my to be the shop in '96 is because his rope supplier burned to the ground, so he had no supply of rope. So that's another fun part of the story is when it took me 10 years of saving and sending for samples, and I finally got a company that would make it right for me.
Beautiful.
So it was about 10 grand invested in material I could never sell.
Right.
Then there's some other patterns. It's an ocean plate, just different themes on that. This is a fun one. This is called a kringle. So it looks like a Danish like a pastry thing.
Yep, yeah, like a pretzel or something. I'm with you.
Yeah, there's something called a kringle. I've never actually seen one, but I'm told. And here's we start getting into Jill pans. Well, we got we call them blast shields for the.
Oh yeah, for the.
But you can see
COVID.
the colors over here. Those are the 18 colors we make in.
Yeah.
So when customers come in, we'll custom make what they want while they wait and watch. And this is the one I'm wearing, the whales and the anchors. These are the first pieces of metal I ever designed. I actually designed the shape and there's a little curve to them, me being the engineering geek that I am. So there's that curve to it. And that curve, I size checked it on almost it fits almost everybody so that you don't have any piece sticking out. So it can't catch on things.
Very nice.
Not ours, but we tied that knot. This is Lindsay. She's a potter down the street. She does stoneware for us. So we have a little for the gift shop thing. Again, our string cutting setup.
Yeah, more string. We have lots of it.
Christmas ornaments. And this is probably the most fun one. This is called the Accidental Snowman.
Nice.
Because I made one of these back in about 2003 just as a joke. Thought it was a pain in the neck, didn't bother. One of my employees saw it and asked if he could make one. He made one. My wife puts on Instagram on November 20th, and we sold 400 of them that year with none made ahead. So I was making these things. I was tying the base knots for it all day for a month, every day.
Wow.
But and this plant hangers. I've got two shops. This is the workshop side, and the retail store is a lot more variety.
Right.
Don't forget the doormat and stuff.
We'll get to the doormat.
Okay.
So then he said to take my time, so I'm taking my time. So again, things in the store. These are woven crosses.
Nice.
There's an anchor that Josh made. Josh makes the anchor.
Who's Josh?
Josh is my third most longest lasting employee. He's a fine art major, a fine art graduate who does his own artwork on his own, and just really took off in the Manila room. And the space we're going to go to shortly is basically his space. I don't know if he's going to be camera shy today or not, but he's not.
He's actually over here.
I
think he's going to hide.
You can take a peek shot at him, and he,
Yeah, see, he just waved. He's over there.
There's 4 people working with us right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. Wendy, yes, 4 of us. So keychains. This is a huge wedding thing as well. People put their valet cards in that, but that's probably one of our top 5 items we sell. It's a white keychain.
Yeah, we sell tons of keychains.
Jill does the shipping, so she knows what sells how fast. I just know to keep making stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
And then another one of Jill's designs. She started playing with macrame cord, so she started doing these keychains. We haven't made enough of them to have online yet, but in the store she has them.
So how long have you and Jill been together?
We've been happily married for 5 years. We had just had our 26th anniversary this month.
Hold on, man. Hold on. Wait a minute. You've been together for 50 years and you've been happily married for 5?
26 years, right? Yeah.
Okay, so let me guess, Jill. He finally started listening. No, I'm serious. Was he joking or was he serious?
We've been married 26 years.
Yeah. So he's no. They're happy. Don't let him fool you. We wouldn't still be together if it wasn't. That's a long time to be with the same person.
Well, I tell
some people are slow learners.
You know the marriage is over when I hear chain going down the side of the deck, and all of a sudden I'm getting yanked into the water. So we have wine stoppers here. Again, that's the same monkey fist tied on right on the blank, so it's all
nice.
one unit.
Beautiful.
We have some cool
trying to get these
cool
online. This
bottles.
Is actually one of my proudest things in the store. It's simple, but I've been just started making these a couple weeks ago. That's a leash, which I've been doing for
dog leash
years.
Nice.
40 years.
Nice.
But this is a piece of lobster rope that I got from George, Maine in Noang. 3,000 feet of it. We had to scour and wash it up and make it so it's all recycled.
Yeah, it was pretty
cool.
nasty when we got it. We had to clean it.
Still a little bleachy smell from the cleaning of it, but it's nice to finally get to the recycling side of things.
Yeah. Dusty Corp said, very cool business, very inspiring to quit your day job and follow your own path. I
Yeah.
concur.
It's fun. These are the leashes we normally make.
Okay.
These are cotton. These are soft. They have a little spring to them, so it takes the shock from the dog pretty well. And Josh is going into his room where we're about to head. So.
Oh wait, here's the coasters, which are popular.
How much are they?
They're what's on there? They're the coasters are, I think they're $24 for a pack of 4, and white is the most popular color, but navy. The navy's pretty popular color too.
What's the strangest request you all have had to make knots?
Well, we're back to your bondage gear. I had that question 2 or 3 times now.
Listen, man, those people need knots.
They do, but it's My good Christian upbringing, it ain't happening. My grandma, who lives about 5 miles away, would be storming in here the minute she heard about it. So these are the doormats that Jill was mentioning.
Oh,
that's made out of a continuous piece of rope.
Wow.
This was a fun one. This was Kelly's Deli in Westerly, Rhode Island. Wanted his logo made as a knot. So he took his pencil drawing of his logo, and I think it was Josh and Rachel, and I patterned this all out and made it work. And now Josh is making them as a fun thing. And then the customer so passes up. And so there's more doormats through here. I can show you the creation process a little bit, give you a sense of it.
Yeah.
So this is doorstop.
Oh.
So this is the manila room here. This is one of the place where all the work's done. So this is one of the doormats we just showed you. It's tied as one continuous piece. We had to move out of the way last night because I'm doing some woodworking project for another piece of fixture for the shop. So it pulls through. I can't really do it because the nails aren't in. But you pull it through. And it's one continuous piece of rope. Which is tangled up badly.
Wow. How long is that rope?
This is 1/2-inch manila. It's from the Abaca plant in the Philippines.
You said how long is it?
Oh, how long? 190 feet.
Wow.
Really tangled. Really is a tangled mess. So we took it off the table. Whenever you touch a piece of rope, if you play it on the ground and just throw it there, if you don't touch it, it doesn't tangle. As soon as you touch it, it tangles into a big mess, which is what you're seeing. But as Jill pans around,
it's all good.
Yeah. Oh, this was another cool project, the bearded fender that we did.
Oh yeah.
That's not one we did, but it's similar.
So the bearded fender belongs to a mini tug, which is a 13-foot long little hobby boat that goes around the river here. So we traded doing the work on the tug for able to take rides on it.
Very nice. Jill, do you all ever get sick of each other?
What was that? What was that?
Do you all ever get sick of each other? Do you all ever get sick of each other?
No.
Jill's laid back. She's easy to go along with. Me, not so much.
No. I know. We are together a lot because
Okay.
we live together and work together.
So Robert, you're used to sawdust. This is all dust from the manila. That's actually rope dust. You can see just detail point.
Wow.
It's all little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slivers.
Oh yeah. That'll drive a splinter straight through the flesh all the way at the other side. You never know when it's coming. But
Right. Now, Jill, to the right of you, there was a picture frame with knots in it. Can I see that?
yeah.
Oh. This one? Yep. That's another one.
Yeah, right there. Yep.
Grandfather's. Yep. That's Grandpa's work. So.
That's actually my.
Can we get a little closer?
The hospital.
I know it's kind of hard to because it's like in an awkward spot, but
We
it's
get
like
the plastic and stuff.
yeah, there's like the plastics in the way. But yeah, it's just like different.
Wow.
I don't know what kind of knots are in there, but
A lot of bolins, some jerry masthead knots.
and then he did like this cool
Sheep shanks.
border that he did is really cool too.
That's Cox going.
So yeah, we have a lot of like
Wow.
our personal like
Let me run and grab some.
that's ours. It's not for sale, obviously. We have a
Okay.
lot of stuff.
Dusty Corp asked a very, very good question. Do we get to see Jill?
No, you don't need to see me.
This is a fun project we had. So the Mayflower. She
Yep.
just got relaunched last year. She's about to head back up to Plymouth, Mass. So they made commemorative bells
Wow.
for all the big donors. That's the bell rope that goes on every single donor's bell. So we made 150 of those. So that's
Good for
your
you.
that you've seen. Those are two forms of a Turk's head weave, and that's something called senet. That's a thimble. It all comes in. This ball and that rope are the same piece of material. So we made
Very nice.
these are the leftovers from the project, but they all had to be exactly the same. So This is one of the more interesting jobs we had. I dressed a couple boats this year, putting fancy knotwork on a couple boats.
Yeah, and then these cool lampshades that Matt's grandparents made. We have up here. These are like super cool. They're like
So
really
so Matt, your grandmother and grandfather both tied knots?
Yeah, very similar to what Jill and I did. Is he came in it with his great grandfather was a merchant mariner, you know, tugboat owner up on Lake Champlain up through Whitehall, that area. His grandfather and father both worked with him, and then so my grandfather came through it, you know, naturally. My grandmother learned it just kind of do things with her husband. So similarly, I've been doing this since I was born, basically, and then Jill came onto it back in about '95 or so. But Jill was a dabbler. She did a whole lot of crafts and was very handy with everything she did. And this is, I think it's probably weird for her to have to specialize into one art instead of doing all the things she used to do.
Right.
There's so many different knots though, so it's always different.
Right. All right, cool. Is there anything that you want to share with us that I haven't covered?
I think we covered a lot of ground.
What advice would you give to someone who wanted to do this as a hobby or as a business?
Well, my grandfather couldn't make good money at this because there was no way to connect with the world, and we were fortunate enough to have the whole internet and everything, and people are curious, interested in things and how things are done. So anybody who has something interesting in their heart who wants to try it, there's a market out there for them. They just have to experiment and not be afraid of it.
All right. What is the biggest lesson you take away from your plight, your journey?
Biggest lesson? Plan ahead. Be ready for the long term, but then be ready to snap and change immediately when opportunity strikes. That whole Martha Stewart thing, I never saw that coming. We were ready for it incidentally, not intentionally, because we had set everything else in place. So when the opportunity knocked, we were actually ready for it, which is kind of scary in retrospect.
And you haven't slowed down since?
No, we sped up since.
Wow.
We're like I said, we're up to 7 full-time equivalent employees and about 20 odd people who work here.
Yeah, 2 shops.
It's a lot of folks.
3 shops, 700 wholesale accounts, three online venues.
Wow. All right, so I think we may have covered it all. What's the next place you want to sail to?
Next place to sail to?
Sail.
Yeah, that you are going to take the boat out to.
Oh, sail.
I want to hit.
Excuse my southern accent.
I want to get to Annapolis, Maryland, and you know, one of my goals is to take my mom out to dinner. She lives in Punta Gorda, Florida, which means down the entire East Coast and up the backside of Florida.
Oh, right down the street is it?
Okay. What's the furthest you all have sailed?
Not far at all, just Newport area.
Okay. All right.
Still getting used to it. Jill's never been on a boat before we met, and I was raised on small fishing power boats, not on sailboats. So it's a learning experience.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thank you all very much for your time and for coming on. Much appreciated. What you do is great.
I really appreciate it, Robert. It's great to catch up with you again. It's like without connections through Martha, all of our friends are kind of drifting apart.
Yep. Yeah. And thanks again, Jill.
Okay.
Appreciate you doing the camera work. All right, and our next conversation is at 6 tonight with Norman Leatherworks. He's a leather guy who's also been in the business for 30 years. So, yeah, so that's pretty cool. One second. We have another question. Are any of your products on the International Space Station that you know of?
Not that we know of.
Not that I know of. They've been on TV shows, but I don't think they've gotten to orbit yet.
Okay, so what's the most famous place your knots have been?
The Downtown Disney, 30 Rock, Bosch.
Oh yeah, Bosch is a big one right now.
Yeah, I love Bosch.
Yeah.
trying to think of who else. Well, Tommy Hilfiger's Calembake. That was a private party, but it was there.
Yeah, he's pretty big.
Let me just tell this customer. Yeah, we do have.
Yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank as where.
It's all good, brother.
All right.
So again, thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
All right,
Okay.
thank you, Robert.
Thanks.
Thank you. Enjoy your day.
See you guys at 6
Okay.
o'clock
Thank you.
tonight. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yep. 6 p.m. Bye-bye.